Presentation is one of the most crucial parts of every project, and it is very important to do it accurately, so close to reality and also aesthetically appealing. In this video, we are going to learn how we can create unique and customized floor patterns to add the highest level of details to our projects, and we will test them on these three scenes. Let's dive in and see how it's done. There are different ways to create patterns in Revit, and one of the simplest ways is to use plugins. We are going to use pyRevit plugin this time. We have talked about this plugin previously. If you want to learn about all of the helpful options that this plugin offers, you can watch this video. But this time, we're going to just use this make pattern. We cannot have this pyRevit on the latest version of Revit, so we're going to use this Revit 2024. But when we export these patterns, we can use it on all of the versions, okay? So to create patterns, first we need to create the shape. You need to be on one of the floor levels, and for creating those shapes, you are going to use model line, or in annotate tab, you can use this detail line. And there's no difference between them. You can use the one you want. I'm going to use this model line. To create my pattern, to create the shape, we're going to start with creating the boundary. And for that, I'm going to use this rectangle. Let's create one in here. The size, the dimensions totally depends on you. You can go with any size you want. And of course, if you want to change it, since this is a 2D lines, you can use a scale and change it to the size you want. So if you are working on very small thing, if it is very detailed, you can create it with larger scale with any size you want and then change it a scale. I'm going to change the size from this part 1.2, from the other side 1.2. Okay, this is the standard for creating any tile. After this, I'm going to divide these parts from this midpoint to here and also from the other side. Then I need to divide these parts too. So for that, I'm going to use this split element and I will cut these parts so I can create lines from those parts too. Now I will have midpoint in these parts and I can easily create some other lines in the center like this for each one of these parts. Okay, and for this part. I'm going to create my shape between these parts, and after that, if I want, I can delete these lines. I'm going to use this model line again, and with this start end radius, I'm going to create an arc from this part to here. The top part should be on this side, and I'm going to repeat it for the other side. This is a very simple pattern that we are going to start with, and as we go to the next part, it is going to be a bit harder and more challenging. For this part, I'm going to do the same. You can either select these and copy them to here, or you can just create it yourself. I'm going to create it to this part and another one to here. You can also use mirror. And the last part will be in here. Okay, this is going to be our pattern. Okay, I think I need to create this again with this start and radius from this point to here to this part. Okay, so this is going to be our pattern. If you want to use it this way, you can totally do it. But I'm going to just delete these lines, these second lines that I created, and also this one. Okay, after that, if you want to turn this into a pattern, you are going to select it, all of these lines, and then go to pyRevit. In here, we're going to use this make pattern. Okay, on this dialog, first we need to assign a name to this pattern. For example, let's go with RVT PLUS circle. Then we have this pattern type. You can choose between detail pattern, 2D pattern, drafting pattern, which is this option, or the model pattern. I will create all of my patterns on model pattern because it is easier to control it. Okay. After that, in this part, we don't need to really change anything. And then at the end, if you want to use this pattern only on on this project, only in this part, you can just use this create pattern. But if you want to export it and use it on any other project, you can use this export PAT file. I'm going to click on this part, and after that, as you can see in here, pick origin point, bottom left corner of the pattern area. Bottom left corner. I'm going to click on this part. Then you have this pick top right corner of the pattern area. So I'm going to click on this part. Then you need to assign an address for your file, for your pattern. And if you click on select folder, you will see this note pattern RVT plus circle exported. Okay, I'm going to go to my scene, to this one. Select this floor, go to edit type, and in this section, I'm going to go to material section, material for this part. In here, I'm going to change it to a new pattern. Let's change its name to floor test. And in this part, we are going to use this pattern for the foreground. For its background, I'm going to use a solid pattern. And for its color, let's go with something like this. Okay. For the foreground pattern, I'm going to click on this part, switch to model section, create a new pattern. And in here, we are going to change its name to the same name we add, and after that we're going to switch the type to custom, and in this browse section we are going to search the address we assigned for the pattern. In here we can see it, and you just need to select it. As you can see, hatch patterns, the format is .pat. I'm going to click on open. In here, if you want, you can change the scale. For now, let's check how it will look on our floor. I'm going to click on OK. OK again. For its color, let's change it to a white color and click on OK and OK again. So this is our floor. I'm going to rotate in this part. As you can see, it is very unique. It looks really good on this part. This is how you can use this pattern, and this was a very simple pattern. Let's go to the next one. I'm going to go back to this Revit. In here, again, we are going to create a boundary with this rectangle in here. I will use the same size. In this part 1.2, and in here 1.2. Our second pattern is more like a wooden floor pattern. It is a classic pattern, unlike the other one which was modern, so it might has a little bit more challenge. I'm going to create my lines again from the center, from this midpoint to this part in here. And then I will start with creating a line to here. Then I'm going to use this pick line with 10 centimeter offset. I'm going to create one in here, another one in this part. From this start, let's work clean. So I'm going to move these parts down and these parts up to here. We can do these at the end, but this way you can see how your pattern looks like. Click on model line again from this point to the center to this part, and from this part to here. I'm going to use this pick line again, and with the same offset 10 centimeter, I'm going to create two lines in these parts. Okay. After that, I'm going to move these lines down here, both of them. You could also use mirror for these parts. Okay. And the next part will be another line in these sections. I'm going to use this pick line again, but this time I will use just 7 centimeter offset. For all of these parts, I'm going to create it in here and then trim them like this, and in this part and in here. Then we will use this split element. Let's zoom in and click on this part. Make sure this delete inner segment is unchecked because we don't want to delete this part. We will delete these sections. Click on this part, in here, in this part, in all of these corners. and at the end in here. I'm going to delete this part here, these two, and in this part. Okay, this is just one side of our pattern. Now I'm going to select all of them, all of these lines, also this one, and I'm going to mirror it for the other side. Okay, then mirror it again for the base, and another one for the other side, like this. Now, before we finish this pattern, I want to add a little bit more depth to my pattern. So I want this section, this part, to go above this part. Okay, for that, we just need to extend these lines together and also this part, and delete these lines between them. I'm going to use this split element. Check this delete inner segment because we want to delete these parts between them. Press tab if you can't find the right line, and in here, as you see, the inner segment is deleted. Do the same for this part too. I'm going to use tab. Okay, and also in here, tab again. Okay, and we're going to do the same for this part too. You see how it looks? It is very different. Right now, we have this part on this section, but in here we have this part on this section. Okay, I'm going to repeat it for this part too. Extend these lines to here, to the other side. And then for this part, we're going to use this split element from this part to here. And in this part, press tab, okay, to here, tab again, and at the end in this part. Okay, so this is going to be our pattern. I'm going to select it, go to pyRevit, click on this make pattern, give it a name. Let's go with RVT PLUS Classic. Switch to model pattern, and then in this part we're going to click on export PAT file. Click on this part, and in here assign an address for it. Click on select folder, and now our pattern is created. Let's go to our scene. I'm going to go to this part, to the next scene that we have in here. Let's use the other scene. I think it might look much better in this part. I'm going to click on here, go to edit type, to structure section. For this part, I'm going to assign a new material for that, change its name. Let's go with floor test again. Click on this background. I'm going to assign a very simple and light color for this part, something like this, maybe a bit darker. Okay, and I will use a solid pattern for the background. For the foreground, let's create a new pattern in the model section. Create a new one, change its name, RVT PLUS Classic, and switch to custom. In here, browse for the classic pattern that we created. Okay, let me just rename this. What is this? P classic. Okay, and then in here, if you want, you can change its scale. If not, you can click on OK and OK again. In here, let's change the color to something like this. Okay, and OK. And this is our pattern. As you can see, it is very unique, it looks really good, and it just changed this space, changed the atmosphere of this room. If you want, you can also use this in a very unique way. For example, I'm going to select this floor. Let's go with this one, be the same size. I don't want to change the pattern for that. And in here, we are going to use this pattern only in the center, okay? Around this part, maybe to here, back there, Okay, for now I'm going to create it in this part, and there are different ways to assign patterns for unique parts of a floor. For example, you can separate the structure layer with the finish layer and then change the final layer of your floor. Okay, but I'm going to use this split face. For example, I'm going to select this floor too. Let's switch this to this one, and then in here I'm going to click on this split face and select this face. Let's go to this first level in here. Since this is a split face, you can also use these parts too, and you don't need to create a closed boundary. I'm going to use this rectangle from this part to here. Let's delete these lines and move it to the part that we want, to here. Okay, and then I'm going to hit finish. This is a split face, so we can also create two closed loops inside each other. So I'm going to use it again for creating another line, another area in this part. Click on a split face, select this area, and then create another line with this big line and 1.2 meter offset. I'm going to click on this part and in here, and then hit finish. Okay, now if you go to 3D view, we have a separate area in this part. Okay, and we can just simply use this apply paint to this part. If you click on here, you can see all of the materials that you have. In here we have this floor test. You just need to simply click on this part and then click on done. Okay, now we have this area, this pattern around this face. Okay, since this is a model pattern, you can use these lines and align it with exactly the part that you want. Let's go to this first level. It is easier to do it in this part. Use this align, click on this part, and then in here. Okay, you can do the same for this part too, like this. So now we have this pattern in this area, so clean. As you can see, exactly the part that we want. The more detail you add to your floor, the more time you spend on it, it will look much better and professional. Now let's go to the third pattern. Go to Architecture tab and use this model line. Again, we are going to create a square in here. I'm going to just do it in this part and change these sizes. Of course, you can go with any size, any dimension you want. You can go with a rectangle or a square. Then I'm going to create some other lines in the center. This pattern is a little different and it might be a little challenging because we are going to use these parts as empty sections. Okay, I'm going to use this rectangle inside this part with 21 centimeter offset. Okay, from this corner to here, press space if you want it to be inside. Then I'm going to use this pick line with 7 centimeter offset. I'm going to create lines in both sides of this rectangle. Okay, and in this part. Then we are going to use this fillet for all of these corners in this part, in here, and also in this section. Let's change the size to 3 or maybe to 2. Okay, and also in this part 2 centimeter for this part again, and in here. For all of these lines, one side of them should be attached to this part, to this line, and the other side should be attached to this one and this one. For example, these two should be attached to this part, to this base, and the top part should be aligned with this part, and this one will be aligned with here. We're going to move this one to here too, and the top part should be aligned with here. I'm going to move this part down in this part. On join element, let's move this inside to here. Okay, For this part, it's the same. I'm going to move this to here and this one to this side. This line will be aligned with this, and then from the other side we are going to move it to this part. Okay, since we might have a little problem in here, I'm going to do this later. Let's continue with these parts. This line will be aligned with here, this one to this side, and in here we can just simply move this line to here, right? So I'm going to move it and align it with this line and join the elements. Okay, now they are exactly in their place, except this one, which we are going to move it to this part like this. Okay, so this is going to be our pattern, and we're going to use it, mirror it for this part too. These two parts will stay empty. I'm going to select all of these parts and then use this mirror to mirror it for the other side, but we are not going to keep it in this part. I'm going to mirror it again for the other side. Okay, let's delete these lines, and in this part let's check the exterior lines. We forgot to do this part, so I'm going to move this one to here and this part to align it with this line. Okay, and the same for here. This way we can understand where we should open easier, and this part should be from this part to here, so it is correct. I'm going to delete these lines, okay, and move this part to here. We are going to split this, cut this, move it up to here, and then this one should be aligned with this part. Okay, and for this part I think they can be attached together this way. Let's delete this one and move it to here, right? There is no problem in this section. I'm going to delete this line and we just have one line in here. For this part, this line is correct, so I think we can delete this part, and this is going to be our frame, the whole pattern. Okay, this is just one unit. I'm going to select all of these parts. Let's go to pyRevit, click on this make pattern, give it a name. Let's go with RVT plus unique. Click on this export pattern file, click in here, and then in this part. In here we are going to assign an address, select folder, and our pattern is created. Let's go to this scene, to this part, maybe to here. Okay, and on this floor I'm going to go to edit type, to this structure section, floor. Let's create a new one, change its name to floor test. In this part, for the background, I'm going to go with a blue color, a light blue. Click on OK. For the pattern, we are going to use this solid fill. For the foreground, I'm going to change this color to something white. Click on OK. For the pattern, go to models, create a new pattern, change its name to RVT plus unique, and then switch type to custom. Browse your pattern. This is the one that we just created. Change it to scale if you want. Click on OK, OK, and OK again. And now we have it in this part. This is our floor. As you can see in this part, we have these empty sections in here, and it's like your pattern is just connected together and you have used just two separate patterns, but it looks like this, and this is very unique. If we didn't have any pattern on these parts, let me just select all of them. And in this part, I'm going to assign just one pattern, one solid pattern to all of them. Let's go with this one. Click on OK. For the foreground, I'm going to use this solid with the same color. Click on OK. In here, you can see this pattern much better. You see how unique and special it looks. And this is a pattern that you can't see everywhere. It's just for your project, right? If you want to have all of these patterns or these two kitchens or this coffee shop, you can just download them from site. There is a link in the description that you can use. I really hope you enjoyed watching this tutorial and I will see you next time.